Hey guys, Phil/Polygon here. Welcome to episode 29, talking more Dark Souls 2 PvP. And just kind of bombing around in my little mundane build here. In my mundane build? How about with my mundane build? And no, you know what? I'm going to stick with in. I'm going to stick with in. I'll tell you why. Because in playing this build, I am in character. And thus, I am in my mundane build. And that has been settled. I got my taboo little dagger, and spending a little bit of time in the Brotherhood of Blood arena. Speaking of which, the bridge sucks. Oh, nice little gratuitous cheap shot to start off the episode there. I'll probably get some hate for that. Dude, I love the bridge. That's cool. That's cool, man. You can love the bridge. I hate the bridge. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. And I think that might be an appropriate tone to set for the video as well. I predict stretches of this might get a little bit more salty than usual because I wanted to talk about some observations I've made out in the current PvP landscape that have me a little bit vexed. So I wanted to share some observations, some behavioral patterns I've noticed, see if you guys are coming across similar things and maybe get a little bit of feedback and I don't know. Two things, namely, that I'm talking about. One is the culture of baiting. Everybody is out there just baiting all day long. Very passive, waiting for you to swing or trying to get you to swing so that somebody can unleash their fancy-dancy retribution upon you. It was funny, Eric Arianto mentioned on Twitter the other day, he said, you know what, baiting is the new meta. And that really resonated with me. It was like, dude, baiting is the new meta. And I don't know, I'm a little frustrated with it, just because there seems to be a big lack of engagement. There's not a lot of coming at ya. So I wanted to talk about that. Also wanted to talk about the culture of avoidance. I see a lot of gear choices being made and get a lot of feedback about equipping certain items, rings, weapons, and things like that to just completely avoid certain situations rather than learn how to deal with them. That's got me a little bit frustrated as well. So given the nature of this video, please bear in mind this is just my personal opinion. These are my personal preferences. I'm not trying to assert that one playstyle is better than another. This is right, this is wrong. This is just kind of the way I see it. Personal preference. Internet disclaimer. Here we go. Alright, so kicking it off with a quick little look at the build. There's not much to it. It's about the most stock, mundane build you can possibly put together. 20 in all stats and the rest dumped into Vigor to get you to 150, starting as a deprived. I am in New Game Plus in the arena, so anything goes. All my gear is upgraded, weapons at least. I actually don't think I have the Pyromancer top or my Thief Mask upgraded all the way, and I have my Ring of Blades +1, because I don't know, who fucking cares. I can't ever remember what the Pyromancer top is called. I think it's the raggedy ass hobo cloak, but I'm not sure. I'll check the wiki on that. I actually swapped out, though, I will say, from that Alva armor I was rocking in the first clip because I felt too heavily armored. I believe I may be in the minority in feeling that way, but we're just kind of out here having a good time, and that's about all there is about the build. So let's start with baiting, and I will say, I will promise to try and be objective about this as I possibly can, weighing the pros and the cons and maybe looking at why this culture of baiting seems to have developed. I think it might have kind of an interesting origin story. Maybe it's not our fault. Who knows? But keep in mind, it is a fairly frustrating topic for me. I find that style of play amazingly irritating to fight against. I think in general, I'm not an overly aggressive player, but I find in a lot of my matches, I have to take on that role. Otherwise, nothing will happen. People just hang out and dance. Well, you know, and talking about baiting as a thing, let me be very clear. I am not decrying baiting as a tactic. Baiting has played a huge role in PvP since the inception of the series. It was a huge part of Demon Souls, it was a huge part of Dark Souls, and now it's a huge part of Dark Souls 2. Baiting is a totally legit, totally viable tactic, but it seems like it is significantly more prevalent in Dark Souls 2 PvP than it has ever been. And it kind of reminds me of, you know, thinking back on Dark Souls, you'd run across those cats whose primary means of engagement was the roll BS. They would just wait for you to swing so they could go in and get a roll BS. I feel in Dark Souls 2, the primary means of engagement for a lot of people that I'm coming across is the baiting. They will just kind of hang back or do their fancy little unlocked figure 8s and wait for you to come at them. And in a lot of those situations, I find myself just kind of hanging back. Like, I'm trying not to play that game as best I can. That's when you'll see me kind of disengage, just stand back and block, or pull out the bow just to try and say, quit doing that. It is so irritating. And I just, worst case scenario, envision these situations where nobody's doing anything. Everybody's just standing around waiting. Swing at me. No, you swing at me. No, you swing at me. No, you swing at me. And it just, I don't know. I find it really frustrating. And it does seem to be a lot more prevalent in Dark Souls 2 than it has ever been. Am I crazy on that? Is that just me? Or does it seem like people are playing it a lot more passively than they have ever been? I kind of feel like the days of getting a just in-your-face style brawl are very rare and very precious. I like those, like the really fast pace, up close. I'm not talking about R1 spam either, not getting up in your face and being overly aggressive and just swing, 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 swing. But in terms of, tight tactics and close quarters combat, it just, I don't know. Even the guys that are super heavily armored are just waiting back to bait. What is going on with that? And so I started maybe thinking about why. What is different about Dark Souls 2 versus the other 2 titles in the Souls series that made this style of play so prevalent? If it is so prevalent, maybe it's just me. Please let me know. And I started thinking about, is it a PvE thing? Because that's absolutely how you play PvE. You wait for enemies to swing so you can parry them, or you learn timings to dodge and attack safely. That's how you beat all bosses in the game. You learn their patterns and you learn how to dodge them, and then you attack when it's safe. But I feel like that's kind of bullshit. That's been around since Demon Souls. That's how you beat bosses in Souls games. You have to get better and learn their timing and attack when it's safe. So I don't think that would have had anything to do with why it's in this one. But I wonder, there were some pretty broken glitches when the game initially launched and people were getting into PvP that might have been responsible for this. I'm thinking about things like the Monastery Scimitar insta-parry, or the roll parry and the backstep parry and stuff like that. When in the early days of the game, or the early couple of months in the game, it was just fucking unsafe to attack. You had to bait. You had to make sure that your opponent was doing something else before you could safely attack them, especially when you saw those curved swords in the offhand, especially when anybody can parry you with damn near anything while rolling. I mean, that was just like kind of a broken thing. And I wonder if we as the community kind of developed a response to that. We had to bait. We had to, make sure that the opponent was occupied with some other animation, because you could just be parried and one-shotted by a Mastodon Halberd or a, buffed dagger or something like that at any given time. So I wonder if it was just kind of a natural evolution where this baiting thing kind of developed and then just became the norm. It's also super effective. I lose to these guys all the damn time. Not because it's so clever, not because I've been tricked into an attack, because somebody has to be the offensive player in these situations. Somebody has to put on the hat of saying, okay, let's break the ice. I'm going to take a swing. So, I mean, I think I get it in terms of trying to plan a safe attack vector. I think that makes sense. The hitboxes are still pretty weird. That's been one of the, side note, that's been one of the frustrating things about trying to play with these knives, because their range is so tiny. So I'm trying to get used to like all the subtle nuances of where a weapon can hit you from and where to be safe. And so a lot of times I won't roll and I'll just try and like back away, but because the hitboxes are a little bit wonky, you still get tagged with something. So I mean, it all plays into it. I wonder if it's just kind of the nature of the game with the hitboxes and kind of the early glitches and parries being not, in my opinion, not terribly difficult to get and so crushingly dangerous with the damage that critical stuff does. Maybe that's just the nature of the game. That is probably the natural evolution of it becoming so ingrained in the PvP scene. And so again, let me just maybe talk me down off the ledge. I am really frustrated fighting just match after match after match with dancers. Is it just me? Please let me know. Give me some feedback in the comments. What are you guys experiencing? What are you seeing out there? Are you a player that employs that type of tactic, and now how's it working? Pretty well, I assume, at least if you've ever come across me. Yeah, I don't know. And, you know, maybe frustrated is the wrong word. Maybe vexed is the wrong word. Maybe it's just fatigue. In the same way that you got tired of fighting caster after caster after caster in the early days, or the same way you get tired fighting katana after katana after katana. I mean, you do get fatigued with these things as a player, especially if you're trying to do something different and maybe a little bit goofy. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from baiting attacks. It's a fantastic tactic. Go with God if you're out there doing it. But I am really curious about why it is so much more ubiquitous in Dark Souls 2 than it ever has been. Let me know. Let me know. And I know the whole reactive gameplay, you couldn't see my condescending air quotes thing, was something that a lot of the loud voices went off on in the early days. Just people being passive. It does seem like people were a lot more offensively minded, a lot, not aggressive, but, you know, a lot more actively engaging in Dark Souls and Demon Souls PvP. That's not a criticism. That's not saying Dark Souls 2 PvP sucks. That's just an observation in terms of play styles between the two games that I'm noticing. And personally, you know, again, personal preferences, it does make my duels a little less fun just for the way that I like to play. So I think maybe I will take a little bit of a break from the arena, a little bit of a break from the setup matches on the bridge and things like that, and just do some random invasions. Oh, that's a incredibly important distinction I totally failed to make until now, 11 minutes into the video. The reactionary stuff, the counterattacks and baiting and all that kind of thing, seems to play a much bigger part in duels than it does in invasions. In invasions, you know, you as the invader kind of have to be the aggressor, because usually the host will have a phantom with them or something like that, or just trying to make their way through the level. So it doesn't seem like this kind of stuff is as pervasive in invasions. It's mostly a duel thing, at least in my experience. So I think, you know, just to get a little bit of a break, get some fresh air, I'm going to do some more invasions. I also realize that none of my videos thus far have been invasions. They have all been duels or setup matches or arena matches or things like that. So we'll add some perspective and get a little bit of perspective for myself, and maybe do some invasion stuff down the road and just try and get some distance, clear my head, and get some perspective. So hit me up, please. And I'm going to move on to something that I guess is kind of related in so much as that it's a reaction to something else in the game. And I kind of mentioned in the head of the episode about avoiding certain situations, just completely removing yourself from certain situations with gear choices and stuff like that. And there was, in one of the roundtables that the visionary Hero of Canton and I did, I can't remember exactly which one, but we were going on a segment about how the answer in Dark Souls to everything was just roll through it. Just roll through it, bro. And I see a lot of comments and get a lot of feedback and hear a lot of feedback around that type of thing in Dark Souls 2. And a lot of it, you know, makes sense. So let's talk whips. So in the early days of the Monastery Scimitar, when it had the insta-parry and stuff like that, or curved swords in general, or bucklers or small shields, if the answer is, we'll just use a whip. And when you hear people go off about backstab fishers, or I'm tired about the damage that criticals do, and the answer is, we'll just put on jesters, or just put on ironclad, or put on gowers, or something like that. That really bothers me personally. Again, personal preference, because it just kind of sidesteps the entire issue. If you're throwing on a whip to avoid being parried, it doesn't lead to any kind of improvement. It doesn't lead to any kind of dealing with the situation or getting better or playing such that you don't get parried. It just like takes that element out of the equation. And I think it kind of stunts you. I mean, if I'm out there getting parried into oblivion, my gut reaction, I'm making the choice not to put on a whip and instead work on attacking more unpredictably. Or if I'm out there getting backstabbed into oblivion, I'm not going to throw on jesters. I'm not going to throw on the ironclad armor or gowers or anything like that. I need to work on my footwork to try and not get backstabbed. And I see that a lot just with this character. You know, I'll go out there and wave at somebody and they'll immediately switch to jesters or something like that. That's totally sensible. That's totally legit. That is, I get it. I absolutely get it. Backstabs are crushing in this game, and they're not that difficult to get. And so, yeah, you see somebody with a dagger and it's kind of like, oh shit, I'm going to jester up, which makes sense. I just I'm choosing not to make those kinds of choices because I don't want to just avoid the situation. I want to be able to deal with the situation adequately to not have to rely on gear, not have to worry about what I'm wearing, so that all of my builds always carry a whip, or all of my builds always have gestures handy so I can throw it on if somebody's trying to BS fish. I would much rather learn to deal with that and punish that after much failing, believe me, rather than just kind of sidestep the issue altogether. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I see that a lot. Or I'll parry somebody a couple times and then they bust out a whip and use the whip exclusively. And it always kind of makes me snicker a little bit, not in an arrogant way, but just in a, well, okay, it's effective. It's totally effective, but it's kind of chicken shit, dude. So I don't know what. That sounded very arrogant, and I didn't intend it to. I meant it to be like a constructive choice that I'm making to not use gear that allows me to not be parried or not get backstabbed, and instead work on being better so that I'm attacking unpredictably and not getting parried, and managing distance and spacing and footwork better to not get backstabbed, lag stabbed, weird hitboxes, stuff like that. That shit's always going to be there. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that too? Oh crap, I just realized I've been talking incessantly and that is my last clip. So I am going to cut it fairly abruptly there, sorry about that. But what do you guys think about any of this stuff? Definitely let me know. I love hearing from you guys about this kind of thing, especially this kind of thing, because it is nothing but opinion. Maybe I'm reading this completely wrong or missing something obvious. So let me know. And as always, thanks for watching, listening, comments, all that kind of stuff is great, awesome. Thanks so much, and I will see you next time with Invasions. Breath of fresh air. All right, see you guys.